We are live.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. This is the second in our series of 4 town halls. I see that we have some returnees from when the vice mayor and I spoke in late January. So glad that so many of you could join us tonight. I'm pleased again to introduce my colleague on City Council, Vice Mayor Eddie Alvarez. Eddie, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you all for attending again a town hall meeting, and this time via Zoom, which is a great opportunity to folks who couldn't attend in person to have the opportunity to share the concerns or questions, and also hear about the great things that the city of Santa Rosa is doing for us, the residents.
Absolutely. The vice mayor and our plan is to have at least 2 more of these this year. Again, another one in person, and then probably another one in Zoom. We want to make sure that every resident of the city has a chance to weigh in and ask questions and learn about what's happening at City Hall and elsewhere in the city. And to that end, we've got a great group of our city staff here tonight, starting with City Manager Markeisha Smith. We have Police Chief John Cregan. We have Fire Chief Scott Westrope. We have our 2 city managers here, Jason Nutt and Dariel Dunstan. We have our chief financial officer. He's been particularly busy lately, Alan Alton. We have our housing director, Megan Bassinger. And then we have our transportation and works director, Dan Hennessy. Thanks to all of you for being here tonight. I have no doubt that all of you will have camera time as the evening goes along for the many questions that our residents will have. Before we get to those questions, or before we get to our introduction and those questions, we have a little bit of housekeeping to do. If I could have our host talk us through the run of show for the evening.
Thank you. Welcome, and thank you for joining us today. Before we begin, these are just a few quick of our housekeeping notes. This webinar is being recorded. The webinar includes live interpretation to Spanish. To listen to your preferred language, click the interpretation icon, which is the globe down below at the bottom of your Zoom window, and select Spanish. You can choose to mute the original audio if you prefer, and to hear only the interpreter. And live closed caption is available.
I'm going to repeat that portion in Spanish so our Spanish speakers can access the Spanish channel. Voy a repetir en las instrucciones en español para que nuestros miembros de la comunidad que hablan español puedan localizar la interpretación. Bienvenidos y gracias por acompañarnos hoy. Antes de comenzar, queremos rever algunas notas. Este seminario web incluye interpretación en español. Para acceder a la interpretación, haga clic en el icono de interpretación, que es un globo terráqueo localizado en la parte inferior de Zoom. Cuando hace clic ahí, puede seleccionar el idioma español y va a ser colocado en el idioma español. Si prefiere escuchar solo al intérprete, usted puede silenciar el audio original. Este seminario está siendo grabado y hay subtítulos disponibles en vivo.
Thank you. To enable your closed caption, click on the CC below or live transcript button on your Zoom toolbar and select Show Subtitle. You can also view the full transcript or adjust caption settings from that same menu. Attendee chat, video, and audio for participants are disabled. If you have questions for the mayor and vice mayor, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom window. We'll be taking questions in writing only, no verbal Q&A. The mayor and vice mayor will begin answering the questions shortly after they are done with their updates. Participants can upvote questions submitted by others by clicking the thumbs up icon. This helps surface the most relevant or popular questions. The most liked questions we will answer first, and then we will take questions by the order that they were submitted. We'll aim to answer as many questions as we can live. The questions that do not get answered will be compiled into a FAQ document and shared via the city's website. If you experience any technical issues, please reach out via the Q&A and our team will assist you. Thank you.
Sully, thank you very much. Anna, was there any follow-up to that just before we launch into our main program?
No. We are ready.
Excellent. Thank you both. All right, with that, let's get started. Our run of show for the evening is that the vice mayor and I are going to talk about some of the great things that are happening in the city. We're going to talk about some of the challenges that are in front of us, and then we're going to open it up for question and answer. And our summary here to start is going to be fairly brief. The vice mayor and I will talk for maybe 10 minutes or so. So there's going to be a lot of time for questions. And with one of the most important things we want to emerge from tonight is we want feedback from the community. We want to make sure that you're getting the information that you want from your city council representatives, but we also want to know what you're hearing out in the community and what we should be paying attention to. And with that, let's start with some great things. First and foremost, Santa Rosa has some fabulous building projects underway, as I think people can see by just looking at the cranes in the skyline. Vice Mayor, you want to talk to us about some of the projects that are happening over near Hearn Avenue?
Absolutely, Mayor. And to your point that you just made with all the questions and all the great things and making sure that people feel informed, we are aware, or we've been made aware, that on our official city website, all the answers and questions that are being asked tonight, we can see a list of the FAQs there. So if and imagine if it's like anything like we were in person, there were a multitude of questions, and although we might not be able to get to answering all of them, there will be a space for the people to find the answers to the questions that they're asking tonight. And with that being said, you're absolutely right. There are great things that are happening in Santa Rosa. The one that I'm most proud of, and probably that's most evidence for those people that travel the 101 corridor, is the Hearn overpass. So we've actually done, you can definitely see the changes that are happening. It's $43.7 million that's being dedicated to that project. Along with that, right down the road, we have the hub, or what's currently called the hub, and that's the library and the fire station. The phase one design is in its completion state, and we're moving forward with that. And I was made aware that the Sonoma County Library folks did vote to approve in helping us reach the funds necessary to make that a usable space for our community. So I'm very happy to inform the people about that. And if we travel elsewhere, I know that there's about 33 miles of road repair and resurfacing being done for our neighbors in Coffee Park as well as Fountain Grove due to the Tubbs fire and all the damage that was done in that incident. So there's great things happening there. Now, Mayor, if you're aware, I would love for you to speak about some of the other things as well as awards that the city of Santa Rosa has been getting and the recognition that the staff, the team of the city of Santa Rosa has been making to make sure that our home is as beautiful as it can be.
Oh, there's plenty of awards to talk about. And the fact that the state named Santa Rosa as one of the few housing plus cities, or housing first, or pro housing cities rather, which makes us eligible for all kinds of grant funds, including some for which we've already been awarded. People love Howard Park. They love the Bennett Valley Golf Course. These continue to receive awards. Back to some of the points that you were making, Vice Mayor. One of the things that we hear most frequently on City Council is the state of our roads. And you mentioned how in Fountain
Yes.
Grove we're repairing about 33 miles. Well, people need to be aware that starting this year, we're going to be pumping about $2.7 million in extra funds into our city streets as a result of the voters' decision a couple of years ago to approve Measure DD. So Santa Rosa was already looking to do more in terms of roads and basic infrastructure, and now we've got additional funding to go along with that. And people have already seen some of the results as on Sonoma Avenue and Santa Rosa Avenue downtown. Heaven knows there's a lot of other streets and roads in the community that need attention, and the city is making that a priority. And more generally, we know that the city wants us to be building and maintaining infrastructure in the city. We are changing our processes internally. Thank you to City Manager Markeisha Smith and TP Transportation and Public Works Director Dan Hennessy. They are working on our internal processes to make sure that with the money that we have in place in our capital improvement in our capital improvement funds, we are able to get more projects out the door so that Santa Rosa residents see the impact of their tax dollars and the dollars that they voted for in recent ballot measures. So you've already mentioned some of the capital projects. Actually, two more large ones would be the Southeast Greenway Thank you again to the Southeast Greenway volunteers for their work over 15 years to allow the city to purchase those 48 acres and build a big connector into the Annandale State Park, as well as a place where we're going to have bike paths and safe routes to schools and outdoor space. And then we've got the bike ped overpass, that $40 million project up near the Santa Rosa Junior College dorms. That's going to be an iconic bridge for the city that finally connects. It's another way the city is allowing the east and west side of Santa Rosa to connect over 101. So when that bridge is finally built, people will be able to walk and ride their bikes right over the freeway and get from those two sides of the city. So just another really outstanding project that's underway. And we want people to keep those improvements in mind and keep those improvements in mind as we move forward. Vice Mayor, did I see you had a comment?
Well, I was gonna speak on exactly what you're speaking on, which is the improvements that we're doing not only to our roads but our parks. We have the Roseland Creek, which people are calling Pomo Park. That's about to be online. We have the phase 3 for the Cogan Park as well. That's being renovated, and a lot of money is going into that project. So it's not only our streets, but it's also our natural gems, our environment that we're really looking at a serious look at, and we're putting the money where it needs to be in order to say that we are being sustainable and being able to prove that we're being sustainable.
Bingo. We love our parks here. And as important as all this building that we're talking about is our economic development. For anybody that's been either downtown or in Montgomery Village, I think they'll agree that Santa Rosa is more vibrant now than it was in the recent past. We've got so many new shops that are moving into either the downtown area. If you haven't checked out the restaurants downtown, please do. Thankfully, you're going to have to start hunting for parking now. If you go downtown any weeknight or on weekends, it's packed. There's lots of people down there. And so be ready to look around for parking, but you're going to find a really active downtown. And likewise over in Montgomery Village, where we've got just fantastic new shops, where it's crowded all the time. You can feel the energy. And the city wants to keep this going. To the extent that we are actually sending a recruiting visit or a recruiting group to Las Vegas in May, so that we can recruit more retailers and more businesses to the area. We want to make sure that we are attracting businesses across the spectrum to come here to make our city vibrant, to hire people who live here, and to contribute to the economic growth of the city. And Eddie, you see this, and you see this in your district as well. You want
I
to talk
truly
about some of the
do.
other economic?
And if we're speaking of downtown San Rosa, yeah, if we're speaking of downtown San Rosa, let's speak about the safety, how people are feeling safe in downtown San Rosa. Every one of our residents has resources, from our homeless population with the Caritas through Catholic Charities. We've seen an 18% reduction in homelessness. It's evident in our downtown corridor. So we're finding a home for all those individuals, or at least doing our best to provide them resources. And it's producing an economic growth that we're seeing. So I'm very happy to see. And you're right. And to speak of parking, Mayor, let's remind the folks that there is free parking in our garages as well as on Sundays. And after 6 o'clock, they are able to enjoy dinner without having to worry about quarters in the machine.
Good point. Good point. Yes, free parking after 6, and the first hour is free. Thank you for that reminder. And then again,
Absolutely.
we have 20 over the past couple of years. We've had 2,300 units of 2,300 units of housing either built or entitled. This is why we're a pro housing city, and there is more housing to come. And that housing is going to support our workers in this area, our teachers, our firefighters, our police, our nursing staff, our healthcare workers. We are making sure that we've got places for all of those individuals to live, to keep us vibrant. Well, let's turn to public safety right now. There was a pretty big item at City Council a few weeks ago, and it's worth highlighting that this item came from our community members. We had a committed group of residents who wanted to make sure that the city was paying attention to the growth in massage parlors, particularly illicit massage parlors in the area. And over the course of a year, they worked very closely with our public safety teams and our code enforcement teams. And just a few weeks ago, the Santa Rosa City Council officially passed a new massage parlor ordinance to make sure that our public safety personnel have the ordinances on the books and the tools they need to stamp out illicit massage parlors and the human trafficking that goes along with it. These parlors have been really wreaking havoc in some of our neighborhoods across the city. And thankfully, we have residents who were sounding the alarm, and the city was able to take quick action, and we are going to be dealing with this problem. So a really good news story for the city. And this leads us into some of the other public safety wins this year. Vice Mayor, do you want to talk about a few of the stats from Santa Rosa Police?
Absolutely. And in regards to the massage parlor incident that you just spoke about, a lot of props and kudos to as you stated, our residents who were fed up and were seeing these illicit businesses near their homes. And, to them and also the Greenway Project folks who are really showing cities what can happen when the people become united and work towards achieving something, whether it's removing massage parlors or opening up parks. And actually the golf course is another one of those examples. I mean, this is really, and now that we're having a lot of our constituents and our fellow residents here online, it's really the power of the people. And I love that the city of Santa Rosa is listening to our fellow neighbors in improving our city. But yes, in regards to public safety, props to the chief. He's been doing a great job. I know that Rosen is very thankful for his efforts, whether it's the sideshow issues that we were dealing with for decades. I mean, it really came to chief and his team to change things, and it's evident. And when it comes to public safety, look at the reduction in homicides. I mean, we had 10 to 2, 23 compared to 2004, and 80% reduction in that. Incredible amount of ghost guns. I believe it was 124, which is actually 125% increase, and 390 total weapons being removed from our streets from the possibility of taking someone's life. So I personally attribute that to the reduction in homicides and violent crimes in the city of Santa Rosa. And I believe our chief is online. I would love for him to come on and actually give people the details and probably correct the numbers that I've given you if I have them wrong. Is our
Vice
chief available?
Mayor, yeah, Vice Mayor, if I could ask you, you are breaking up a little bit. Sometimes when you're speaking, while I want you to be present online, you may want to turn your video off. Sometimes it helps if you turn your video off. We'll try to keep you on as much as we can, but if you turn your video off,
Not a problem. And city
yeah,
manager, I'm definitely made for radio, not TV.
great. Chief, go ahead.
There we are,
Thank you very
Chief.
much, Vice Mayor. And yes, just to reiterate some of the stats that you gave, we saw an uptick in violence in our community over the last couple of years, but we've seen tremendous progress in reducing that. And really what I want to say, what a team effort it is. So we saw 12 homicides in 2022 in our city, followed by 10 homicides in 2023, and then a dramatic reduction in 2024 of going 80% reduction all the way to 2 homicides. And that really has contributed to a team effort with our violence prevention partnership, really working closely with the Santa Rosa Police Department, working with local nonprofits throughout our community, and really trying to have a collaborative approach about coming together, providing resources with really an upstream approach, working very closely with our Santa Rosa schools and our Rosen School District and our other surrounding school districts. But we still see some of the things that we really want to work with parents and our students and our community on is the firearms that you mentioned. And we saw 390 illegal firearms thieves off the streets of Santa Rosa. 124 of those were these privately manufactured firearms, more commonly known as a ghost gun. And we're seeing that's continuing into 2025. So what we're doing is we know we're not going to arrest our way out of just arresting people with these guns. So we're doing that upstream approach of working with our schools. We worked with the Violence Prevention Partnership and hosted a summit this year with it, where we had our detectives come and meet with well over 150 parents and talk to them about the dangers of these guns, how easy they're able to access, really working with our youth to understand the dangers. So we're hoping to see a decrease in that, but we have seen some promising thing. And aside with the homicides, we also saw the shootings reported in the city of Santa Rosa go down 52% in 2024. So it was actually 188 less shootings that were reported to the Santa Rosa Police Department. So that's tremendous progress, and we want to continue that. working collaboratively, and we're continuing to show why Santa Rosa is such a safe and vibrant community all across our city. I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor.
And Chief, if I may, since I have you online, and for my community, one of the largest concerns that we're having is the current federal administration in regards to immigration. And I'm hoping you could touch on that for our community who is listening, especially with the Spanish-speaking community.
Absolutely. So this one is one that I've heard a lot from our community on, and a lot of fears and concern in our community across our entire city. So we really want to assure, and we've done as much as we can to publicly talk about the Santa Rosa Police Department's stance. And really, it's all of the chiefs and our sheriff across Sonoma County who have come together. So in November, when a lot of these concerns arose, we came together as all of the chiefs of police from across Sonoma County and Sheriff Ingram came together, and we wrote a collective letter to our community pledging that none of our agencies are going to be involved in immigration enforcement. And actually, quite specifically, the law in California forbids us. So Senate Bill 54, which is the California Values Act, talks about local law enforcement officers are prohibited by state law from doing immigration enforcement, from detaining an individual solely on their immigration status, for turning someone over to immigration enforcement for immigration status. So the Santa Rosa Police Department, we won't even ask those questions. So under no circumstances is the Santa Rosa Police Department going to be detaining anyone, asking their immigration status. And quite frankly, I've had the conversations in the community. If some community member were to walk up to a Santa Rosa police officer and say, I illegally crossed the border last night, the law in California prohibits us from taking any action. And the officer would be like, oh, that's great information to know, but are not going to take any information or any action on that. So we really want to build the trust in our community that no matter who you are in our community, where you came from, that you're going to be treated with that dignity and respect, and that we're not going to be enforcing immigration enforcement. And on the flip side of it, Santa Rosa Police Department is not going in the way. I've had other concerns about us stepping in the way of other federal agencies. We don't interfere with other agencies. What we do is let federal agencies do their job and police agencies don't, but in no way do we participate. And quite honestly, we don't get notification or cooperation from federal resources. That the local law enforcement are kept out of that with it. But I just really want to reassure our community by state law, by our department policy, that we're not going to participate. Some of the things we also did is we translated our immigration policy into Spanish, and we posted it online. So if you go to the Santa Rosa Police Department, it has not only the letters that our chiefs and our sheriff put out to the community, it has our immigration policy both in Spanish and English puts there. It also has our resolution that our city council put out back in 2017 that's there. So all of those documents are accessible online on the Santa Rosa Police Department. And if there are any questions or concerns that come up, please reach out directly to me, and I'm happy to speak with community groups on this topic or provide any additional resources to make sure our community feels safe and secure.
And Chief, before I let you go, I do
Please go
want to
ahead, Vice
thank
Mayor.
you, and not only thank you, sir. I definitely want to thank you in the hires that you've done when in regards to our female officers, but also our Spanish-speaking officers that you have, especially where they're most concentrated Latino communities. One of the feedback that I get the most is that they were pleasantly surprised when they were pulled over that they could express themselves in their native language and be understood, and not walk away feeling frustrated as they cannot communicate with the officer that might have stopped them. I definitely commend you for those efforts, sir.
Thank you. That's been a concerted effort, not only to hire staff members that better reflect the community that we serve, but we now have over 65 officers who speak Spanish in the city of for the Santa Rosa Police Department. So that's something that we're really proud of. And we have some of our Spanish-speaking officers who do an internal class. So we have a Spanish-speaking class that we're really trying to help give the tools to our staff to make sure they're able to communicate with our community. And we're happy to see that number continuing to grow.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Mayor,
Vice Mayor. Thank you.
that's it for me. What do you have on deck for us, sir?
Thank you. Well, I just want to offer thanks to Chief Cregan as well for that very clear statement, and assure the public that the City Council stands behind that as well. Chief Cregan mentioned the indivisible city resolution. Our job as council members, and Vice Mayor, I'm sure I speak for you and our colleagues, our job is to bring the city together and make it productive and make it safe and healthy. Our job is not to create dissension and make the city less productive. And so all of the things that Chief Cregan was just describing, and which again, all the other cities of the county and the other law enforcement agencies stand behind, the City Council is certainly full-throated in offering our support to those initiatives as well. And with that, we've gone through a lot of the good things that are happening in the city right now. The city does have some challenges, as I'm sure people have read in the Press Democrat. And chief among these is, like a lot of cities in California, if not most cities in California, we've got some budget issues right now. We won't spend a lot of time going into the genesis of these budget issues, but suffice it to say that for the city of Santa Rosa, as with most cities in California, our revenues have been flat in recent years. The sales tax revenues and the property tax revenues that pay for all of the city services have not been increasing at the historic rates. And at the same time, like everyone has been noticing it at their own businesses and in their private lives, costs have been increasing. So the city is in the same situation that many businesses are in and many families are in, where we are trying to balance out the fact that we've got a significantly increased expenditures with revenues that have not kept pace. Now, thankfully, due to the foresight of previous councils, we have some one-time funds and we've got a bit of a runway that allow the city to take action over time to deal with this issue. So we have essentially a 2-year runway where over the next couple of years, we're going to be dealing with the budget deficits that we're forecasting. We're going to be restructuring the city and we're going to be looking for additional revenue sources. This is a challenge for the city, obviously, and it's one that's going to play out over time. So we've already seen the Press Democrat, thankfully, covering this story in detail and providing education to our residents. You will see the vice mayor and I and city staff mentioning this at every opportunity in the public, and it's going to be a story that plays out over the next couple of years. I want to emphasize, or the vice mayor and I want to emphasize, that we do have a clear plan. We have a restructuring plan that is underway, and in fact, on April 15th, more details will be released. And then on May 6th and 7th of this year, we're going to have a 2-day budget study session that will help us finalize the budget, not only for this year, but for next year, or at least the budget plan for next year. And then we are going to be having frequent budget sessions at council to evaluate where the budget stands and any additional changes that we have to make. So we would certainly ask that all residents pay close attention to this story. Again, it's going to be a challenge for the city for the next few years, but thanks to city staff, and I'm going to single out our city manager, Markeisha Smith, for sounding the alarm on this, going back even 2 years ago. Our city has more of a runway than we might have if city staff had not taken action as quickly as they had, and if previous city councils had not given us some of the tools, like those one-time surplus funds that allow us to handle our restructuring in a calm and reasonable manner. So again, Markeisha, thank you very much for your leadership on this, and to the residents, keep paying attention. The city will be tackling this in the coming months. And then Chief Cregan also mentioned the school safety issues in our community. This again has been very high profile, and so the vice mayor and I wanted to mention that. As we deal with the budget, we're also going to be working closely with our school partners to figure out how the city of Santa Rosa can best play a role to make sure that our schools are safe. Last year, it's worth noting for the community that our police were on site, were responding to calls at city schools 1,700 times. That gives a sense for the community of some of the issues that have been unfortunately taking place on our school sites, and that again have unfortunately made headlines. We've had some tragic incidents. But throughout the city and SRPD have been working closely with the school district to provide safety as best we can. And over the course of the next year, we're going to be continuing to do that, to evaluate with the school district whether we move forward with the school resource officer program and what that looks like. We wanted to mention it tonight simply because it has been such a high profile issue. We don't have more details to give, but this will be another story that residents should pay close attention to. So those are two, and then the final challenge we should mention is the continuing challenge around economic development. The vice mayor and I touched on that briefly. We've had some really good success stories over the course of the last year or two, and we want to keep those moving. But economic development never happens quite as fast as people want it to. So we know we still have a lot of work to do, and we just want to reassure the public that this is an area of focus to make sure that we are making our Santa Rosa a place that businesses want to come to, where they want to stay, and that we're providing jobs and economic vitality to our residents. Those were a few of the challenges. Vice Mayor, did I forget any of the key ones?
If you could touch a little bit on the 3x3 structure that we have in collaboration with the school board for those individuals who might not be aware of what we're doing with them.
Oh, certainly. As some listeners may be aware, a year ago, the school district or the Santa Rosa City Schools Board and the Santa Rosa City Council created an ad hoc committee with 3 members of the city council and 3 members of the school board to go through and examine school safety issues generally and a school resource officer program in particular. Eventually, what came from that was a memorandum of understanding that was just ratified by the school district a couple of weeks ago, and which will be appearing on the city council docket on the second week of May for the city council to evaluate. And again, as the vice mayor mentioned, that was the result of a group of 3 school board members and 3 city council members putting their heads together and trying to figure out how best to move forward for the school district to make sure that our schools and our students are safe. Anything else to add, Vice Mayor?
No, sir, you did a great job covering it.
Thank you. And with that, City Manager Smith, I think we have some questions. Should we open it up to the community?
Yeah, great. So the first question I have, if we could bring Assistant City Manager Nutt on the screen. We have a lot of questions related to animal control, so I'm going to kind of keep this a little bit general. Assistant City Manager Nutt, are you able to address the issue of animal control harassing and threatening seniors with dogs in our city parks? And part 2 of that question, and several members have requested if there could be maybe a 2-hour or a 3-hour off the leash law as well.
Thank you very much, City Manager Smith. Good evening. I'm Jason Nutt, Assistant City Manager. We have been in contact with Animal Control Services. It's our intention to actually schedule a meeting with the Animal Control Service manager as well as their staff to better understand what their procedures and protocols are for evaluating the off-leash law. I will say that at this point in time, the investigation that we've done internally has determined that our ordinances within the city prohibit all off-leash activity during regular business during the day at all times. While I know that there is a sign at Doyle Park that provides some opportunities early in the morning, there actually isn't an ordinance allowing that. It's been something that the city has allowed to occur for the benefit of certain community members. Moving forward, we'll be trying to identify how best to work with animal control, not only in managing how their personnel interact with members of the public, but also how we might better establish a fine structure that's more consistent with what the community and council's expectations are. Those will all be forthcoming over the next couple of months as we have those face-to-face discussions with animal control at the county.
Thank you, Assistant City Manager. I'll also have another question for you. We are interested in finding out the status of Kiwanis Springs Community Park, particularly community gardens. If there are other community gardens that are in the works, how may we find them?
Thank you again, City Manager Smith. The Kiwanis Springs Community Garden Project is at 100% design. We are waiting on some final permits in order to put that out to bid. And Public Works Director Dan Hennessy could also provide some more detail if needed. But that project is designed and ready to go. It just needs those final permits. Other community garden projects, there are a few within the city. And we've received multiple requests from communities all over town to reestablish or establish new community gardens. And our Recreation and Parks Department is actively evaluating each of those requests and determining where we can incorporate those into new designs of parks as we're looking to either reestablish parks redesign them, or construct new parks. And so reaching out to Recreation and Parks Department is the most appropriate place. And our team will be happy to provide you a list of existing gardens and areas where we may have be looking for access to new gardens.
Did our colleague Victoria Fleming ask that question underneath a pseudonym? So rest assured, for anyone on the call who is a community garden fan, there you have a very strong advocate on council. Victoria Fleming is making sure that nobody forgets about the importance of community gardens, and indeed, she has support from the rest of council. I think I'm safe in saying. But thank you for that question.
All right, Jason. One last question. Who is Santa Rosa's Climate Emergency Mobilization Liaison appointed pursuant to Climate Emergency Declaration Resolution 2002-002?
Thank you again, City Manager Smith. The city manager did put forward a new position for fiscal year 24-25. Due to the current budget conditions, that position has gone unfilled and is one that we're looking and reevaluating at, as the mayor mentioned, reorganizing into a different format given the current budget situation. It is an area that many departments are touching, whether it's planning and economic development, Santa Rosa Water, our public works, our parks. And as a multidisciplinary approach, we'll be looking at forming an internal team to try to figure out how we best address the climate action issues, how we track it, now that it's been incorporated into the general plan that's going to be amended here shortly, and then how we show that information to the public on a public-facing dashboard. For the moment, I'm acting as the liaison with Sonoma, with the SCTCA, Sonoma County Transportation and Climate Agency. And we'll eventually look to hand that to another individual within the organization as we reestablish or establish this internal climate action group. But that's where we're at this point. There are multiple hands in the mix, and we are actively working on tracking the data. We just haven't created yet the public-facing space for folks to see how well we're doing.
Can we quickly underline what Assistant Manager Nutt just laid out very succinctly? There is so much going on in the city right now that directly addresses the climate change crisis. The fact that we have not filled this position does not mean that nothing's happening. If you look at the fact that the city has brought in millions of dollars in grant funding to electrify half of our busing fleet. If you look at the initiatives that are taking place in transportation and public works to make our streets safer so that we're getting people out of cars, which is one of the major contributors to our carbon footprint. We want people on their bikes and walking, to say nothing of the quality of life improvements that those entail. And an often overlooked part of the city's plan to address climate change is the fact that we are building housing. Because again, if you look at the carbon footprint data for our community, so much of that footprint is a result of the fact that people have to drive here from many miles away rather than living in our community. We need to make sure that our workforce can be housed here, and that by itself will do a whole bunch to address our carbon footprint. And that doesn't, and none of this even touches on the initiatives that we've launched in terms of public transportation. Jason, you mentioned some of the initiatives we have in Santa Rosa Water, and no one ever talks about the fact that we send 4 billion gallons of water a year up to the geysers from our treatment plant that creates clean, renewable energy for 600,000 people in the North Bay. So thank you again to the residents who are watching this issue closely. Believe me, the same is true of city staff and city council. But there's a lot happening at the city a lot happening on the ground at the city to deal with the climate change issues. We don't want people to think that nothing's happening because we don't have this particular position filled. Sorry to interrupt, City Manager.
No, thank you, Vice Mayor. Would you like to add anything before I move on?
No, I think the mayor stated it.
All right, great. So the next question, I want to bring up Director Hennessy. So the question is, how are we progressing on better safe bike paths?
Thanks, City Manager. Well, part of our challenge over the last year has been reorganizing our capital improvement program to focus on the types of things that community members have been asking for, such as pavement maintenance and safer transportation. Through the last 6 months or so, we've had a series of study sessions with council to go over those efforts, and I'm happy to share that the result of that is a improved capital improvement program that prioritizes basic maintenance and safety needs. I'm also happy to share that our active transportation plan update will be before council in June, finalizing the list of projects. And because of these efforts, we're able to kind of co-locate these improvements, such as when we do pavement maintenance, we're also focusing those efforts on improving the bicycle network. With the latest state of the practice improvements, Class 2B buffered bike lanes, Class 4 protected bike lanes, and really analyzing the space available to us and the trade-offs that we need to make with respect to vehicle capacity or parking without creating new issues for commuters to handle. So a lot coming, and this active transportation plan that will be before council in June is a huge first step to making that happen. And then the capital improvement program over the next 5 years will make a big dent in achieving a lot of those projects by focusing money and dedicating money to implementing that plan.
I think we should focus for the moment on the fact that Director Hennessy is giving this very articulate description of where we're going with bike paths and pedestrian paths for the community with one of his children on his lap. If that's not the
She's an
picture,
engaged community member, Mayor.
if that's not the picture we want of Santa Rosa, I don't know what is. Thank you, Director Hennessy.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. So the next question, I'd like to bring up Chief Westrope. So what is City Council's plan to enforce the new ordinance 2003-016 that went into effect on the invasive vegetation in Santa Rosa's wildland urban interface?
Thank you, City Manager, and good evening. Scott Westrop, Fire Chief of the City of Santa Rosa. So the Vegetation Management Ordinance, which we passed late last year, is in effect, and the team's currently working diligently on getting all the pieces of the Vegetation Management Ordinance in place, including planning out defensible space inspections. So currently within the WUI that involves areas like Bennett Valley, Fountain Grove, Oakmont, and the Skyhawk areas, we have 9,000 parcels that need defensible space inspections and education. The team is working on a prioritizing plan based really on the burn scars and the rebuild areas, primarily to do about 3,000 inspections a year. This will be on a cyclical basis, reason being that because vegetation is, it's not weed abatement, where weed abatement, weeds grow every year. Vegetation management, vegetation takes a while to grow back. So the biannual basis of the defensible space inspections makes more sense to stretch out a little bit further because it takes longer for that to grow back. So they plan on being able to get these inspections done. They're currently working on the plan. They've added quite a bit of resources through grants. Vegetation management is one of those strange areas of the world where unless you have a vegetation management ordinance, you cannot get grant money. So it was very difficult for us to build a vegetation management program in a CWPP with grant money. So once we had those things in place through PG&E settlement funds, we were able to roll that into additional grant funding. So we're working diligently on it. It's certainly a concern of mine every time I drive through town and see things like Scotch broom and French broom. It certainly raises my eye. I talk to the city manager about it a lot, where we see those pretty yellow flowers that aren't that pretty in my mind's eye. So we are currently working on the rollout of the program and to get into those defensible space and enforcement inspections.
Thank you, Chief. There was also a question in the chat that asked how many of the bike stations are currently on the ground. We currently have 8 stations for 35 bikes. We are planning for 12, which will be 80 bikes. I don't see any more questions in the chat. If we want to pause for a minute and give our attendees some time to put some more questions in the chat?
Certainly. Now's the time, folks. Vice Mayor and I
Mayor,
are eager to be here. Go ahead, Vice
absolutely.
Mayor.
Mayor, I was just thinking of, the questions that we get asked a lot. What is the city doing to uh, obtain outside funding for the projects and necessities of the city of Santa Rosa? And I have a list in front of me of some of the funding that comes from outside the city of Santa Rosa. And if you could allow me, I would love to run down this list while we
Please,
wait for questions.
that's certainly a good news story for the city. Go ahead.
Right. Well, I'm looking at $1 million from the Ag and Open Space District. This is a grant for the Southeast Greenway property that you mentioned and you spoke about just a bit ago. So, some of that money is definitely our staff going out there and getting those bucks for our residents. We have about $900,000 as federal funding for San Rosa Police Department's Real-Time Crime Center. And again, this is attributed to the public safety. We have 77,000 from the Bay Area Air Quality Management District for two-way protected bicycle lanes. And we just spoke about what are we doing to increase bicycle safety and pedestrian safety as well, right? I'm also seeing here that we have over $210,000 in energy efficient and conservative block ECBG grant funding for the electric vehicle infrastructure plan. And this goes to speak about what we're doing to reduce our carbon footprint. So these are definitely things that we as a city of Santa Rosa are definitely going out there proactively in obtaining these funds. We have 166,000 from the Justice Department's Office of Community Oriented Policing Services to support improved recruitment and retention of diverse populations in policing. And this again speaks to what I'm seeing in Roseland, which is a lot of people that are doing the policing that look like us. And I think that's one of the asks that we've had for decades and from any community in the state of California or in the United States of America, really. And we're doing it here. So those are just a few of the things that I was seeing on this great list of funding that we're obtaining from outside the city of Santa Rosa.
No, that's a really good thing to highlight. Thank you, Vice Mayor. The city brings in tens of millions of dollars every year in terms of grant funds. And our city staff has been both working hard, very successful and on this front. Actually, one of the items that you mentioned, the Real-Time Crime Center, we should focus on that for just a moment, because that's a good example of what the city's doing in the current budget, with the current budget situation. So as we talked about earlier, the city's in the position where it can't necessarily hire more staff. We are capped at what we can spend. But as a city, we still have the obligation to provide high quality services, including public safety, to all of our residents. So for that reason, we need to look at creative ways where we can continue to do a good job in areas like policing, even if we're not able to hire more police officers. And that's one of the things that the Real-Time Crime Center was meant to address. So what the Real-Time Crime Center is in essence, it leverages technology to give our officers better information and quicker information about what's happening at various crime scenes. So we have a license plate reader, for example, that allows our officers to identify more quickly what vehicles might be involved with a crime and where those vehicles are. That system actually just helped crack an organized Colombian, what's the word I'm looking for? Not crime game exactly, a theft gang. Chief Cregan, what's the phrase I'm looking for? What's my technical term?
An organized retail theft group that
There
was
we go.
around and coordinating, unfortunately, targeting businesses here in Santa Rosa and their owners.
There we go. And we were able, because we had the Real-Time Crime Center and we had the flock camera system, we were able to identify what automobiles were involved and where they were. And we have other pieces of technology as well, so that when our officers arrive on site at a crime scene or a suspected crime scene, they've got better data. And what this means is that we are able to provide top quality services without necessarily increasing staff. And so that is the goal of that system. And as we deal with our budget issues going forward, we want to be looking at solutions like that. So we're still doing a good job with all of our basic city services, even if we don't have quite the resources that we'd like to have to spend going forward.
And Mayor, not to take anything away from the improvements in technology, but one of the things that stands out for me personally is the old school policing improvements, and that's building the trust within the community that at one point feared our law enforcement. And there's no metrics to measure this, but just from my gauging the temperature, I see that people are much more trusting than they've ever been of our law enforcement. And I'm really proud of that fact. And I'm really proud of Chief Cregan and his team that has made that reality. So, yes, technology is absolutely great that we're making those improvements, but I love that people are trusting of the bridge that is between law enforcement and the community they serve.
It all starts there. It's good that you highlighted that, Vice Mayor. City Manager Smith, am I noticing that we have a few other questions starting to trickle in?
We do, Mayor. Let me read the first one. Your newly appointed Community Advisory Board has begun again to establish a work plan designed to strengthen and empower neighborhoods and residents. Key to its effectiveness will be their communication and synchronization with the council's goals and objectives. How will you work to ensure that they successfully represent your own goals and work with them in tandem with you? So that's either for either you or a vice
Vice Mayor, do you want to take a crack at
Well,
that?
I'll speak for my appointee to CAB, Ana Diaz. One of the things that her and I have had conversations about is when I served on CAB. What was the purpose of I'll speak of the funds that we give to the community when I served on CAB under late Mayor Bob Blanchard. It was to assure that residents had the necessary funds or seed money to begin a community garden, to begin an art project, to begin a little local book library for the residents. It was really to fill that the most smallest gap that might make the biggest impact in a neighborhood. And one of the things that her and I spoke about, how can we get back to that point? And I believe that we're looking at not nonprofits, but really organizations, neighborhoods, and how we can help them with those needs that they might see that we would never be able to see. As again, it's that little difference that makes the biggest difference, or the littlest issue that makes the biggest difference.
That's a great response. I'll pan out and answer the question a bit more broadly, just to follow up on the Vice Mayor's point. What council is doing right now for all of our committees and for all of our boards is evaluating what their core purpose is. We want to make sure that when we're asking members of the community to volunteer their time, that the board that they're on is only moving towards a goal that council supports, and that they're very focused in their mission. Likewise for council's own subcommittees. So to that question, it's the perfect one to ask right now, because we are looking at all of our committees, all of our boards, community and internal, and making sure that they're serving the key goals of the city, so that we don't have any groups of individuals out there that feel like they're spinning their wheels, or that their time is not being used effectively. And the community advisory board being one of the central boards of the city out there, making sure that we're getting feedback from every district and every community. We're going to be paying close attention to that group, and make sure that it's and making sure that it's in alignment with council goals.
Thank you. So our next question is for our CFO, Mr. Alton. Do you see any threat of federal grants being canceled given the current climate of Washington? And I can chime in if you would like to as well.
Sure. Thank you for that. So right now that is, it's something that we're looking at very closely. While we don't see anything that is an immediate threat, we haven't been noticed of cancellation or pulling back of funds. We have seen things that are, we can probably expect more vigilant auditing, and that going later on in the grant process. It's something that we are looking at very closely, though.
Thank you for that. All right, let me go to another question. So we have a question on Summerfield Theater. Will the council vote on reviving Summerfield Theater.
I can pick that one up. I know that we have some of the strong community supporters online tonight, and as has come up in conversation with members of that group, the city would like nothing more than to see a vibrant space emerge, whether it's in the Summerfield Theater or somewhere in that district. So we're watching carefully to see what the community, what the volunteer community can create there. At the moment, there's not much for the city council to do. We were sad to see the theater go. We understood the economic reasons for that. We want to make sure that in that development there, which is just down the street from where my wife and I live, we want to make sure that we've got some kind of exciting, productive activity going on in that space, whether it's a business of some kind, if it's an arts institution, that's fantastic. The fact that the Summerfield Theater has been a catalyst for a few hundred people to come together and really try to get involved in that area and make something good happen, that's fantastic. And so to that end, the city council is certainly supportive, and we're watching closely to see what comes out of all those conversations and all the ideas that are being kicked around.
Great, thank you. All right. Would you consider providing development incentives for the conversion of commercial and industrial property? Oh, hold on. My screen just moved. Industrial property to residential shelters and transitional housing. So that question is either for the mayor or vice mayor.
I'll throw out an initial answer. It's certainly a question that gets asked. And it's maybe a little bit more technical than we want to get into on this call. I would say that everything's on the table. That Santa Rosa did not get a pro housing designation because it wasn't willing to consider creative options. And if you look at the kinds of things that the Santa Rosa City Council has supported, and the kinds of ideas that the city has brought to fruition, like the Renewal Enterprise District, our partnership with the county, providing gap funding for housing developments. If you look at the conversations that we've had with some of the recent developments that have come to fruition in various parts of the city, we are willing to consider any kind of creative ideas. The issue with development at the moment, of course, is that there are a few too many headwinds. Not that stopped development, but boy, the city would like a different financing environment. We're very glad that we have a lot of developers interested in the area, and we are in conversations weekly with those developers. So to the question, the ultimate answer is yes. The more complicated, the longer answer is that it gets complicated, but we've had those kinds of conversations before. Vice Mayor, what's your response?
I'm hoping that I come through and I'm not too choppy on the screen. I'm leaving the camera on for a second here. We as the city of Santa Rosa have converted a wrecking yard into a beautiful housing development here on Sebastopol Road. We as the city of Santa Rosa over a decade have become a developer-friendly city. And so for me, we're a city that's not going to say absolutely not. I think that I'm very proud of our staff and that they figured a way to make miracles happen. So I personally believe that anything is possible. And if we look at the history of zoning, it is industrial areas that sooner or later turn into either commercial or residential areas. So this history, the wave of history and the zoning. So I definitely foresee it.
Yeah, and I can punt this over actually to either Assistant City Manager Dunstan or Housing Director Bassinger. It's more than just transitional housing. What we find when you have transitional housing is you either have money for capital and you don't have money for operating, or you have money for operating and you don't have money for capital. So I don't know if either one of you would like to speak to that challenge that we face.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Megan Bassinger, Director of Housing and Community Services. And just to follow up on the city manager's point, I would say the Housing Authority, which administers the city's funds for affordable housing, either development or rehabilitation, on an annual basis, considers such proposals. So if there are developers or groups who have proposals, certainly we are willing to review those and consider them for funding opportunities, which would allow you to proceed through the development process. And as the mayor indicated, our planning department has been very receptive to ideas and incentives to help move units forward. So I think the short answer is yes, we would certainly be open to that and have mechanisms in place.
Oops, I think you're on mute, City Manager. There we go.
Sorry about that. So we're going to ask, I'm going to ask one last question, and then we're going to go to final comments. So I love all the parks in Santa Rosa. Thank you for that. And I also love to walk on gravel and sand paths. All the parks that are close to downtown seem to have paved paths, either blacktop or concrete. Are you looking into leaving city parks more natural with non-paved paths? And I'll turn this over to Assistant City Manager Nutt.
Thank you, City Manager Smith. Great question. We are required through the federal Americans with Disabilities Act to provide all accessible pathways in all of our parks. And so most parks will have some level or an extensive network of paved facilities. But I will say not all parks. We are looking, we have many parks that have dirt or gravel paths. They're usually the larger parks, whether it's Nagasawa Park, Howarth Park. We're designing non-paved paths in Roseland Creek Community Park. I think the Vice Mayor labeled that as Pomo Park. And so there are other areas out there that we are looking at developing more of a natural landscape. But just know we are required to incorporate those paved services in an effort to ensure that we are providing access to all users. We definitely want to be known as a friendly community to all, and that's an important aspect of it. But I certainly appreciate the question, and we'd be happy to identify other parks if there are some specific ones. The downtown that was mentioned in the question, City Manager, it's generally difficult in the downtown. Parks are fairly small. They aren't as large, and therefore it's more difficult for us to provide a varied surfacing of pathways networks in those. But I'd be happy to investigate other locations if there are some.
And one location where that will almost be certainly investigated is the Southeast Greenway Park, where again, we've got 48 acres, and there's going to be a lot of opportunity to have different kinds of pathways. And thankfully, planning will hopefully kick off this year or within the very near future. So for anyone interested in talking about pathway surfacing or anything else to do with parks, pay attention to the Southeast Greenway, because there's going to be a lot of different development options there. And we absolutely need community input to make sure that that park turns out to be as good as everyone hopes it will be.
Yeah, thank you for that. And Mayor and Vice Mayor, before I turn it over, I think it's important for our community to understand, because we do receive a lot of questions, especially regarding our budget deficit. So our budget is mainly made up of property tax and sales tax receipts. And what some don't understand is both property tax and sales tax increased around 2003, mainly because we had high home values and businesses. So there was a lot of growth here within our city and growth throughout the country. And also we had increased fund reserves, mainly from COVID-19 money, federal support, whether that was in the form of CARES money, our American Rescue Act money, and we also had money from bipartisan infrastructure law. So we were able to receive a lot of grants. So now what we're starting to see is the market and city stabilize back to pre-COVID era. So a lot of individuals ask us, well, how did we have such a large windfall? And, I won't go too much into it, but the way that the state of California sales tax works, depending on whether you have distribution centers within your locale or not, $1 million windfall in sales tax could make or break a city pretty quickly, just how sales tax are distributed within the state of California. that is definitely being looked at a higher level. That's beyond our pay grade. Anybody on this line, when you do talk to your delegation at the state level, there should be conversations about, are there going to be adjustments to the sales tax model within our cities? Because they can be very great and they can make or break a city depending on how online sales happen within your community. Online sales have definitely transitioned how cities and counties receive their money. So when we talk about, how we receive our money, if you take an opportunity to follow us and look at our finances, majority of our funds from property and sales tax. And because we just had high home values and because people were spending COVID money, cities had American Rescue Act money, we were able to stabilize our government. So they basically were a lifeline for municipalities and they gave us a nice cushion. But now we're returning back to pre-COVID regular spending is what I would say. So that's how you start to see the shift in our finances. A lot of people sometimes want to point the fingers and say, hey, were you not managing your budget? So that's not always the case. So you're more than welcome to give us a call if you have additional questions, you want to know more about our budget. Alan and I are always available to have those discussions with you. We want to be very transparent. We want you to understand how the budget is managed here. We do take fiduciary responsibility serious here in the city, and we want to make certain that we are stabilizing this city for years to come. So, Alan, I don't know if you want to add anything on that before I turn it over to the mayor and the vice mayor.
No, I thought that was great. So, thank you.
Mayor?
Vice Mayor, and final comments before we sign off?
I'm excited to see what Santa Rosa become tomorrow. I think of all these, and if I cut out, please let me know so I can cut the camera off. But when I'm thinking of Tierra de Rosa as the cannery and so many other housing projects coming online, and just seeing the improvements every day, how it's being just 420 Mendocino. I mean, just seeing what Santa Rosa is becoming, and that we're paying attention to the infrastructure as well makes me a very proud resident, not only a council member, but a very proud resident of what is happening. And seeing that our community is so engaged, whether it's Greenway, with the massage parlors, the golf course, the Roseland Business Association that's now online, how people are really stepping up to say, this is our city, we want to participate. And for us as elected officials to say, step up, participate, we're hearing you, is definitely something that I'm very proud of as a whole. So I definitely am optimistic of tomorrow. And Mayor, I thank you for taking the initiative with these meetings. I think they've done great for our community. I hope to have more of them. I know that we have another one scheduled here in the future and beyond. Hopefully, we set the precedents of future mayors and vice mayors of really having that dialogue, that conversation with our community. And I absolutely love what is happening here. And I thank our staff, our city manager, for really being champions in this effort. So thank you all.
I agree. This is a great template for the city moving forward. I wish I could take credit for the idea, but we have to give that, I believe, to Anna Horta and to Shelley, who's working as a host. We have a few other members of the city staff here. I won't do a full introductions, but as the vice mayor indicated, we've got a full team behind the scenes that made this possible today. And to your message of optimism, Vice Mayor, I completely agree. I like the way that City Manager Smith concluded her remarks, where she made it clear, first of all, the complexity and the seriousness of the kinds of conversations that we're having internally, dealing with budget issues. For those of you who choose to tune into our next conversations, we'll actually we'll again do a deep dive into the history of California sales tax initiatives. We'll talk about pension stabilization funds. We'll talk about enhanced infrastructure financing districts. Oh, the rabbit holes we can go down. But the gist of it is we've had multiple years of planning, and we've got a pathway to keep this city financially strong for years to come. And that's why we're taking action now. And as we go through this budget challenge, like so many other organizations, we're going to have some great projects going on at the same time. Vice Mayor, you and I had a long list of some of the construction projects that are going on, some of the housing initiatives, some of the park projects, the way that we're going to keep our public safety strong. So as people are reading the headlines and wondering to themselves what's going on at the city, the two things that they should remember are that we have a plan that has been in the works for a long time that we're executing. And this city is going to be strong and fun to live in going forward. So we're gonna maintain the quality of life for our residents. And with that, we'll just invite everyone. Well, thank everyone for coming out tonight. Thank you all for taking time out of your evenings. As we talked about at the beginning, we probably will have two more of these this year. So look forward for keep your eye out for information on the city newsletter and on the city website about an in-person event that will likely happen in a few months. And assuming that people find this Zoom protocol convenient, we'll likely try another Zoom call as well. And again, we can't thank Anna Horta and our community engagement team enough for all the work that they do to make this possible. And with that, Madam City Manager, I think we'll conclude for the evening.
Thank you, and thank everyone for coming. Staff, thank you for your attendance as well. Have a great night.